A new warning tonight about the scope of a massive cyber attack.
Already believed to be the largest cyber attack on our government.
America under virtual invasion. That's what Senator Dick Durbin is calling a massive Russian cyber attack on U.S. government agencies.
A so-called supply chain attack against SolarWinds, a company that specialized in network tools, gave hackers access to potentially thousands of targets.
The SolarWinds hack was, and really continues to be one of the biggest espionage campaigns recently discovered.
The truth is this: the Trump administration failed to prioritize cybersecurity.
Microsoft, Google, and other U.S. government entities were compromised by the intrusion. Hackers were able to compromise the Department of Justice and the Nuclear Weapons Agency, among others.
Yesterday, we saw President Biden suggest the U.S. government was going to respond to DarkSide, which is the entity that hacked the Colonial Pipeline. Today, we are seeing some disruption now of the DarkSide websites on the dark web. Take a look at what we're hearing now from two cybersecurity companies. Mandiant says that dark web posts claim that DarkSide has now lost access to its infrastructure, including its blog, its payment systems, and servers, and has told affiliates they will be closing their service. Mandiant also says that online posts claim that the decryptors will be provided for companies who have not paid. That is, if you have been hacked by DarkSide, this report anyway claims that you will be let off the hook and you'll get the decryption keys to that as well. Also, we've got Intel 471. They're posting some information saying that the posts on the dark web claim that DarkSide has promised to compensate its outstanding financial obligations by May 23rd. That means DarkSide is paying up to its other criminal affiliates. This is bad guys paying other bad guys here and telling them when they're going to do it. Intel 471 also said that posts claim that funds from DarkSide cryptocurrency wallets were exfiltrated. That means that their cryptocurrency wallets were full. Now they're empty. That according to Intel 471. Not clear who took that money or where it went. Also, the cryptocurrency mixing service BitMix has reportedly been inaccessible this week. That's important because that cryptocurrency mixing, we're told, is one of the key ways in which these bad guy groups are able to launder their cryptocurrency and actually hide the source of it. So you get paid in Bitcoin, you launder it, you mix it with some other things, you cash out those pieces of cryptocurrency into other assets of other kinds on the other end of that transaction. This would be an indication that someone has stepped in and tried to stop that process.
Tonight, we're learning more about a cyber attack forcing the shutdown of one of the main pipelines supplying gas and diesel fuel to the East Coast. Courtney Kuby has the latest on the investigation. Courtney.
That's right, Jose. Colonial Pipeline Company supplies nearly half of all fuel consumed on the East Coast, bringing more than 100 million gallons from the Gulf every day. On Friday, they were hit by a ransomware attack, which locks users out of their systems, demanding payment to restore access. It's still not clear whether another nation or some criminal element was behind the attack. The company saying they temporarily suspended their operations in order to contain the threat.
Good evening and welcome to NTD News. I'm Stephania Cox. Here are today's top stories. A cyber attack hits a major meat producer, shutting down many of the company's operations. The White House says the attack may have come from Russia.
There is a great deal of money to be made and power to be gained, of course, by fueling alarmism. Now, some organisations seem to specialise in it. Naturally, they also have the solution, which coincidentally further empowers or enriches them. And it usually involves someone else's money, which is not donated voluntarily by concerned citizens, but redistributed by government, for our own good, of course. Naturally, the problem never goes away. It just adapts to the circumstances, and only the continuing replenishment of their bank account with someone else's money will avert a total catastrophe for all of us. Hey, it's a very neat business model if you can crack it, and plenty do. The entire climate change alarmism business is built around it. The shrill voices get handouts to become even shriller and more professional scaremongers and scroungers than they already are. In fact, it's mostly the eco-zealots who fit into this category. Every week there's a new endangered species or a threatened species of fungi to save. And some organisations, though, have a much grander vision than just saving the environment. They want to save us all from ourselves. And one of those I've spoken about regularly on this program is the World Economic Forum. Remember, they're the mob of autocrats who want to reinvent capitalism, to build back better, and who think you should own nothing and actually be happy. Well, you have to admire the chutzpah. They never let an opportunity to proselytise their socialistic agenda of global government go to waste. You see, they've morphed from green tyranny of the West to pandemic pushes of progressive politics. And I use the term progressive for alliteration purposes only. A more appropriate word is communist, given their agenda's striking similarity to Marx's Communist Manifesto, which we discussed here a couple of weeks ago. Anyway, the WEF is very influential, counting many politicians, international bureaucrats, billionaires and hardcore socialists amongst their advocates. It's probably just a coincidence that many of these groups were also involved in a, quote, live simulation exercise to prepare public and private leaders for pandemic response way back in October 2019. That, of course, was just months before the coronavirus pandemic was declared, and it involved all the usual suspects: the Gates Foundation, the World Bank, the United Nations, the CDC in America, Johns Hopkins University, the CIA, of course, and the Chinese Centre for Disease Control. It also featured big pharma representatives and, oddly enough, a representative of NBC Media. Now, they're just some of the identities that were in attendance. Presciently, though, this mob of altruistic world savers went through a simulation called Event 201, which was about a fictional coronavirus pandemic. Here's what Johns Hopkins University had to say about it last year when questions arose. For the scenario, we modelled a fictional coronavirus pandemic, but we explicitly stated that it was not a prediction. Instead, the exercise served to highlight preparedness and response challenges that would likely arise in a very severe pandemic. Although our tabletop exercise included a mock novel coronavirus, the inputs we used for modelling the potential impact of that fictional virus are not similar to nCoV 2019. See, it's all just a coincidence. I mean, just because the players in the simulation are many of the same ones running the current agenda, there is absolutely nothing to see here. Move along. There is nothing to see. And just to prove it, even the link to the WF epidemic planning page is now dead. I told you, nothing to see. Anyway, managing the world has to be easier than managing your own website, so there is no cause for any of us to be concerned. Except about the next panic attack, of course. You see, the WEF seems so good at preparing for the future, it's wise to look at what they're doing now, because that might be coming down the pipe. Actually, the recent pipeline extortion in the USA is a good case in point. See, that was a relatively mild case of cyber terrorism. And coincidentally, of course, the WEF are conducting a new simulation, this time over a cyber attack that will shut down the world economy. Imagine how quickly society would disintegrate if water and electricity and fuel and other essentials were shut down due to a cyber attack. I mean, hoarding toilet paper wouldn't be enough anymore, would it? We'd have to have a new collective enemy to unite against, while, of course, demanding that government save us all. Once again, the WF is making the case that this is a global threat, which of course it is, and is a, quote, major obstacle in our path to progress. You see, there's that word again, progress, as in progressive, as in socialist. Naturally, such a threat requires a global response, which the WF is prepared to lead. It seems, you see, that every problem identified by this mob and their allies in the international bureaucracy requires the global centralisation of power and decision-making. And this latest simulation neatly fits in with their Great Reset agenda. Now, only time will tell if their concerns over a cyber attack that shuts the world will prove as prescient as their pandemic simulation. If it does, I suspect it would open up a raft of questions as to just how contrived these weapons of mass hysteria may actually be.
The COVID-19 pandemic has shaken our economies and societies to the core and shown us how vulnerable we are to biological threats. In the digital world, similar risks are being overlooked right now. A cyber attack with COVID-like characteristics would spread faster and further than any biological virus. Its reproductive rate would be around 10 times greater than what we've experienced with the coronavirus. To give you an idea, one of the fastest worms in history, the 2003 Slammer sapphire worm, doubled in size approximately every 8.5 seconds, infecting over 75,000 devices in 10 minutes and almost 11 million devices in 24 hours. Fortunately, at least until now, cyber attacks have not impacted our health the way pandemics have, but the economic damages, and therefore the impact they have had on our daily lives, have been equal and sometimes even greater. You see, the only way to stop the exponential propagation of a COVID-like cyber threat is to fully disconnect the millions of vulnerable devices from one another and from the internet. All of this in a matter of days. A single day without the internet would cost our economies more than $50 billion, and that's before considering the economic and societal damages should these devices be linked to essential services such as transport or healthcare. As the digital realm increasingly merges with our physical world, the ripple effects of cyber attacks on our safety just keep on expanding at a faster pace than what we're preparing for. COVID-19 was known as an anticipated risk. So is the digital equivalent. Let's be better prepared for that one. The time is now.